It's all part of the process of being a freelancer. It's the one thing that unites freelancing and becoming good at it is it is a process of self-development. And that's why we've been talking about these broad themes like motivation and discipline.
Hi there, and welcome to another Working From Home podcast with your host, me, Nelson Jordan. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined with our guest, Ziev Beresh. He is a copywriter and marketing consultant. How are you doing, Ziev?
Good. And you, Nelson?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Where are you speaking from today?
So I'm speaking to you from Grand Rapids, Michigan. This is a mid-sized American city in the state of Michigan in the Midwest. And we're known for our farmland and our no longer functioning industry, as well as our great friendly spirit out here.
Nice. So when you say kind of industry that isn't there anymore, you're referring to the automotive industry in Detroit, right?
Yeah, you may have heard of the American Rust Belt. I'm not trying to paint a bleak picture right off the bat. I'm just giving you the nature of the place. We have a lot going on in terms of cultural things. There's a lot with breweries happening and things like that. But historically, we were known as one of America's industrial centers.
Sure. No, I totally understand. We've all got these kind of stereotypes that we associate with places, and sometimes they're right and sometimes they're not, but rarely do they tell the whole picture. I'm currently living near a place called Stoke, which is known kind of in the UK for probably just having a rough football club. But when you kind of get out of the city and move to the countryside, we're near kind of the Wedgwood Estates, which are known for pottery, and it's just a stunning kind of place within England, actually. So you've all got these kind of stereotypes and associations that that just don't tell the full picture. So
and it's just fun to be self-deprecating toward where you're from as well.
Oh yeah, and I think like the British are particularly good at self-deprecation in all forms. But thanks for joining us today. Would you mind telling our audience what it is that you do?
Yeah, so I am a freelance copywriter and marketing consultant. I currently work from home, of course, and I have been freelancing for the past 8 years with a couple of job roles sprinkled in between. My story, if you'd like me to get into it, is
sure.
I am originally from the state of Michigan. My name, again, is Ziev, and people tend to want to know where that's from. So my mother's from Israel. That's where my name's origin is. So I graduated with a degree in English and a desire to write. That's kind of where I started this whole work from home journey. And at that point, when I was first getting started, I didn't necessarily know that I would be freelancing. I was kind of exploring whether I would pursue a path like that, whether I would pursue a more traditional job. So, that decision eventually became more clear the more I lived. For example, I worked a retail part-time job pretty soon after graduating to earn some money at first. And that didn't last long. I knew I could do something I enjoyed more. And even growing up, always been a bit of a homebody. And I know some of us are working home from necessity, but for me, it's definitely been a preference. So that led to me realizing that I should now begin pursuing a career as a writer and editor. So at this point, I still didn't know I'd always be freelancing. Maybe I'd work at a publication. Maybe I'd work at a local newspaper or business. I wasn't necessarily set on the freelancing path. It's just what seemed like a logical next step. So through my network, I got a project helping a local author self-publish her book on Amazon. And learning what I needed to learn for that process started to open my eyes toward the concept of writing online. And around that time, I also started taking odd jobs that I found posted on. At the time, people actually were looking at Craigslist. I think some people actually still look at Craigslist, but I would look I'd look on Craigslist and in Google and see who was hiring for odd jobs, writing blog posts or other content for their websites. So in taking on this work, it led to learning more about obviously working from home and starting to build that as a lifestyle, but also learning more about how to create and distribute content online. Mm-hmm. And I entered this quite deep rabbit hole that I'm still underground in, of digital marketing and marketing strategies that could allow me to take my love for writing, but help my online writing be more effective in a number of ways. Mm-hmm. So, in pursuing this, I took on other forms of writing, other projects, and this led to learning more about how to, make my writing not only digested, but also seen as widely as possible to the people I wanted to see it. Mm-hmm. And in pursuit of this knowledge, I found a couple of agency roles where I was trained further in those skills. And that was a huge accelerator for me. Now I freelance as an online marketing copywriter, as I mentioned, and marketing consultant. I specialize in website copy, content marketing, and email marketing. Mm-hmm. So everything's sort of
any particular type of industries, or just
so I've always been quite averse to pigeonholing myself in one particular industry, and I found that I am a person who enjoys trying different things. So I found that I specialize in a few industries. Mm-hmm. I would say that my specialty surrounds e-commerce, marketing industry itself, the digital marketing industry, and tech as well. So those are where I tend to concentrate on in terms of my client work.
Mm-hmm. Great. So it seems like you've had a few different things there. You've worked for yourself fully. You've worked, through agency roles and had that training there. What's some of the things that you've kind of struggled with going into freelancing?
Well, nothing actually. No, actually, I have to tell you, there's many struggles when you're first starting with freelancing. And I think you can divide those struggles as external and internal. Mm-hmm. So I have to tell you that there is a learning curve to freelancing. It's whether you are beginning at the beginning of your career, making the switch. Either way, there's a collection of challenges associated with freelancing that you have to overcome. And chief among them, in my mind, is yourself. It's really staying motivated and disciplined and focused. Mm-hmm. And this is the chief challenge that freelancers face and anybody working from home faces. Mm-hmm. But it's also what unlocks your ability to achieve everything else.
So managing yourself, basically.
Yes, you have to manage yourself. And, to speak to that, I think that in our society, we're often really conditioned to not manage ourselves. Mm-hmm. From school to our first job experiences to the traditional job market. We're always conditioned to look for the cues from others of what we should be doing. Mm-hmm. And when that person is you now, it's definitely a part of your brain that needs to be developed and optimized. And it's a continual thing. It's not something that happens overnight. I think...
Just to jump in there, I like that concept in terms of you can kind of see it with the way most of us grew up. So as you said rightly, in school, we're supposed to be at a certain place at a certain time, and the learning that we're going to be doing that day, is already mapped out. The teacher has already said, this is the curriculum. This is what they're expected to teach that term. This is the topic. This is how it breaks down week by week. And this is what you're going to be learning on the lesson today. So it's all ready made. You rock up, you put your bag down, get your pencil case out, probably mess around for a little bit. And then you're expected to kind of sit there, digest it. And then you get maybe to high school, it's a similar thing. And then you perhaps go to university where it's a little bit different. And you're expected to kind of be this self-motivator. You can turn up to lectures. Sometimes they don't miss you if you're not there. You're kind of expected to just turn things in. But if you don't go to university, then you get straight into it, and you may find yourself working and having to manage your own time, being accountable to yourself, having to motivate yourself. So how, this is a super wide question, so I think we'll have to dig down, but how do you do it? How's the best way to say something like habit and discipline?
So that is the question. But to preface, because I find myself listening to other audio programs where this topic comes up, and you hear the voice talking, and it sounds like they have it all figured out. And I want to preface and let everybody know, people are probably listening to me and thinking I have a wonderful home office to do all this work in. Well, I used to, but right now I live in a 1-bedroom apartment with my fiance, who also works from home. Our kitchen, our living room, and our workstation are all in the same main living area. And on top of all that, the workstation that I just mentioned is actually a desk that my fiance and I share. So when one of us has a call, the other goes in the bedroom. And it's kind of, you can imagine it's difficult to have, just yourself working from home, let alone 2 people sharing one room, one desk, one workspace. So I just wanted to say that when talking about motivation and discipline, keeping your environment top of mind and being aware of where you are is very important, first of all, because it's easy to compare your motivation and discipline abilities to someone else. But you have to take account the context in which you're in, and the challenges and distractions that you have to overcome. Because some of us have a great work environment, some of us do not. So right now we're searching for a house where we can finally have our own offices. But right now the housing market in our state is a little bit wonky, and we're kind of waiting it out. So to answer your actual question, motivation, like we already touched on, we're conditioned to have others motivate us. So it's really important to develop a self-awareness of what does motivate you and what is your character. Because some of us are more self-motivated, while some of us actually thrive on having people provide us some structure or incentive. And that's okay. You just have to know what actually is going to motivate you, whether it's something that comes internally or whether you do better having that direction externally. And regardless of where you fall, you can control those stimuluses that help you get motivated. So while you work at home, it's tempting to think, I'm stuck at home, but I really, try to resist that thought, because while you work at home, you do have control over your motivation. You do have control over your work output, your growth, and your career progression. And working from home is difficult. And all of us are on a path toward improving our ability to progress in our work and careers. And just taking all that into account, for me, makes it easier to be motivated, because it's just being realistic about what things are, and allowing myself the grace to really, really pursue the things I'm excited about without having doubt cloud the way and get in the way of that motivation and excitement. It's really about generating those emotions in yourself and finding what is in the way. So whether you work on that yourself, or you find, the structures and incentives that you need, if you need help from other people to get motivated, you can find those people online. I know that there's many people who, haven't been working from home their entire careers. They're probably used to meeting people through work or through groups or networks. And I just want to say that that was me too. I never really connected to online groups until this year. And actually, you and I, Nelson, met in one of them. It's online mastermind for copywriters. And I found that to be incredibly helpful, just to know that there's other people in the same situation as you. There's people in the same job role you're trying to perform from home, and they're also attempting to be better at it. That alone is very motivating for me, because I can see that I am going through this with other people. This isn't just some futile thing that I'm attempting.
Yeah, I'd like to point out as well that there are alternatives to this, because being part of some sort of membership or group or something like that, personally, it involves you experimenting with a few groups. I've been part of a few groups. I'm part of one 3 at the moment, one of which I've only been in there for 2 or 3 weeks, and it's not going to be for me. I'm not going to say which one because that wouldn't be fair because it's doing a good job for other people, but it just doesn't suit me. So I'm going to be out of that group. So it does just require being open to experimentation a little bit, trying a few on for size, seeing whether they suit your personality, seeing whether they're actually going to bring the value that you kind of expect, and going from there. Like I have what I call an accountabuddy, which is an accountability person that we meet up once a week for half an hour, 45 minutes on the same day, same time, and talk about the 3 goals that we're going to have before the next time that we meet each other. And lots of times we don't accomplish those goals. And that's fine. But it gives us something to aim for the week. Other times, life happens, as they say, things come up, and actually you realize that stuff is more important, that an objective that you didn't think of on the day that you had your call comes up 2 days later, and it's actually, that's really important to do. Absolutely fine. Now my accountabuddy, she really, really, really does not enjoy membership groups. And that's fine. She's joined a few. She's been freelancing for many years, and she realizes it's not for her. Absolutely fine. So what she's done is found a workaround where she doesn't have to be part of a group. She can still ask somebody like myself for advice once a week. She can talk about her problems, the issues that she's found, her ideas. She can bounce opinions off. And that gives her a lot of the benefits without the downsides that she was experiencing in the group. So I just wanted to jump in and just say that there are other ways around it if you think, but I'm just not a group person.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's great advice. You really have to find, if you need something, you need connection, you need some kind of motivation, finding that workaround, what works for you. And that's a great solution that I wouldn't have thought of initially. So
what about in terms of like discipline, getting a certain amount of work done in maybe I think working from home, I think a lot more people are understanding during coronavirus, how tough working from home can be if you don't have the right systems in place. So for example, just from necessity, because my wife and I moved back from Spain 4 months ago. So until we moved into this house, which we've only been in for the last three weeks, I was working from my parent-in-law's sofa. So for like 4 months, that's all I was doing, just working from a sofa. Fortunate we had like multiple rooms, so it wasn't like I wasn't really under their feet as much as it could have been, but it still wasn't the ideal working environment. It's not good for your back. You're in a room with a TV in. It's right next to the kitchen, so there's lots of noise and things like that. How do you go about working from home in an environment that's less than ideal?
Yeah, and I've definitely had those in-law sofa work sessions as well. I think that, just as with motivation, the key to discipline is self-awareness and identifying what are those distractions in your environment so that you can eliminate them as much as you can. I think that you mentioned systems, and I think that to stay disciplined, there are 3 fundamental practices in terms of systems that work for me. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of people could adopt these too because they're pretty basic, but they work.
Fantastic.
Schedule the week. Whatever I know some people are great at keeping a calendar, but there's other people who don't have a calendar habit. It's a habit that I added during my professional development. And I think that scheduling everything you have coming up ahead of time is crucial. And start with just the week. So on Sunday night, get aware of what your week is going to entail, what you'd like to accomplish, because one of the chief distractions in your environment is actually deciding on what you need to work on. It's an internal distraction. you want to minimize the number of decisions you need to make before you start your day so that you can just start working. And that applies to your workstation too. Prepare the space you're going to work in, whether it's a sofa or a desk. Make that sofa to your liking, and get some noise canceling headphones if you have to. The investment is going to be worth it compared to not getting the work done. So number one, just schedule your week and schedule the day the night before. It's really important to prioritize what you're going to do the following day and know exactly the key tasks you have outlined. So find that realistic set of hard tasks you can complete in a day. Don't set expectations for yourself that are unrealistic, but do challenge your ability to be productive. So for me, that means, anywhere from 1 to 3 lengthy creative tasks like writing. And then for tasks requiring less focus, administrative things that take less thought, like replying to emails, that's what I do when I can't focus enough to get in the creative zone. So, schedule the week, schedule the night before, schedule according to your most important tasks that you must complete. And then when you're actually scheduling to do those tasks, I really recommend power hours. And this kind of like blurs the line with a habit you can develop. But, when I compare times where I've, worked according to, my whims, or worked according to wanting to have a quote unquote 8-hour workday, or quote unquote wanting to work 5 hours today, or whatever it might be, I have found that I can get more done in 3 very intentional power hours on most days when I do them, compared to the days where I'm sitting at my desk for 8 hours. So I really, really, really recommend you schedule those hard tasks you have in front of you into power hours where you'll complete them. So if you have one lengthy task, then break it up. And, I know that I tend to be more focused in the first part of the day and less focused toward the latter half. So I'll schedule 3 power hours typically, where I work with a timer. And, this is kind of similar. Maybe some of your listeners or you have heard of the Pomodoro technique. And that particular work time technique, I think you break into 25-minute intervals with a 5-minute break in between. I tend to have more luck with 50 or 60 minutes and a 10-minute break. So bottom line, set some rules while you work. I think that knowing you have an hour where you're not going to allow yourself a single distraction, that alone is a habit of discipline that can actually allow you to make progress in the work you have in front of you. So keep in mind those rules: phone on do not disturb, browser closed. When you end up, find yourself drifting towards something that isn't outlined in your power hour, you must note that you did that and be aware that you did that. And when you end that power hour, note, were you focused? Were you distracted? And then on your next power hour, you can do a little better.
Nice. So kind of writing down and noting how you felt, what you did well, what you didn't do. I think that's great. It's what I found most interesting through that is there are some of those things that I do. There are some of the things that I've tried and just do not work for me whatsoever. And I think that's fine. Again, it's just about trying what works for you. So for example, the Pomodoro technique and the power hour, not for me. I mean, I think they can obviously work well and they're working really well for you. I hope other people listening to this will try it out if they haven't already to see if it will work for them. Personally, for me, what I found, once I started doing a creative task and I felt like I was in a really good flow, I felt like I was making really good progress, I just would not stop that under any circumstances. So a lot of the times I might start writing at like 9:30 in the morning. And if I really hit my stride with something, say, for example, I'm writing a landing page, I won't stop for anything. I might not stop until 2 or 3 p.m. and I've finished it and I won't eat. I'll just have drinks and stuff just as I go. And then I'll finally like really hear my stomach growling. I'll be like, okay, right, we need to go. But typically I'll like to get a big block. Say for example, I'm writing a long form sales page. I might be able to get a large block done. And if I'm really feeling it, I just don't want to stop for anything. But I've tried all the stuff that you're talking about. That could have easily have worked for me, like the power hour or the Pomodoro technique. The other thing that to kind of add my tips, I suppose, as well, I don't have my phone in the same room as me. Obviously, if you're just working from one room, then that's not ideal. But if you're working from like a studio apartment or something like that, and you just have like the bedroom, you can't do much about it, sure. But we're lucky enough now to have a home office. So what I'll do is I'll leave my phone downstairs. So it's not even in the same room. It's not on. I'm not tempted. I know how I am. If I have it on the desk, I'll just check on WhatsApp or Facebook or something just to see if anybody's messaged. Oh, nobody's messaged. Oh, now I'm going to scroll down the newsfeed for a little bit. Like, I know what I'm like. So it's that kind of self-awareness that means actually it's much easier for me to just leave that. One of the things that I do as well is, as you said, like managing your calendar for me is absolutely key. I'm obviously trying to do multiple projects at the same time. I'm trying to get the work done for my clients. I'm trying to win new business and find people to pitch. And I'm trying to run a podcast. So along with podcasts, these actual recording calls, I have to do research. I have to do discovery calls to make sure that the person is right for the podcast. And those things kind of mount up. So what I do with those is only allow people to book in certain days and times in my calendar. Other times, under no circumstances are they allowed to book those times in my calendar. They're just for me. One of the other things that I'm not sure how this is going to work long term, to be quite frank with you, because I've only implemented it last week. But I've been managing to do it every day so far. I don't have any children at the moment, so I can hear some people, who are just ready to scream, I can't do that because of my kids. That's fine. You'll find other ways to kind of work around this. You just do when that's your situation. But the first thing in the morning, the first 2 hours for me, and I'm probably going to come off super annoying to those people with kids, the first 2 hours are mine. I'm in that situation where I can get up. I get up, I go downstairs, I sit on the sofa, I read on my Kindle for half an hour, 45 minutes. Then I do yoga for 20 to 30 minutes. And then when I'm ready, I come upstairs to the office, I pick up my journal, and then I just write down a few things like how I'm feeling, what I'm grateful for, and the three things that need to be accomplished today. And I try and make those the big tasks. I do similar to you. I try and leave all of the admin bitty jobs that take 10, 15 minutes here, another 20 minutes there. I leave them to the afternoon and the evenings when I'm already quite tired. I've done the hard work, the work that I actually get paid to do. Have you heard that phrase, like eat the frog or eat the broccoli? You've got your big tasks for the day that are the hard ones. Don't wait till the afternoon and the evening to get them done. Do them first thing, take the hardest things. And the phrase is, eat the frog. If you've got 2 frogs to eat the biggest one first. So yeah, no, that's fantastic. I think you've given a lot of great tips. And sorry to jump in there. I just wanted people to know that the key, as you said, is like having the self-awareness and the confidence to experiment with things and chuck stuff aside that doesn't work for you. If you try some of the tips that Ziev has said, or I've told you about today, and they don't work for you, cast them aside.
I totally agree. And I actually think it's really great that you did contrast, those areas we overlapped, like 3 main tasks, and, places we differ, such as like your work pacing. You'll go along, and I certainly have days like that too. But like you said, it is about self-awareness and finding out what works given your temperament, given your character and your environment and the actual work you're actually doing. So I actually think it's good that you contrasted that. Cool. Many people find a routine that works for them too. And you mentioned you had a routine before you started working. And I actually think that's absolutely great. I remember something I read related to writing advice where they recommend for writers to find a routine that you do the same sequence of events before you sit down to write or you sit down to work. But for you, that's clearly your reading and then breakfast, coffee, journaling. So, I find that's helpful too. When you do the same sequence of events before you sit down to work, it primes something in your subconscious to know this is the time where I begin work because I did my routine.
Yeah,
so I actually think that
time for your brain to switch on.
Yeah, so I actually think you hit on another great tip, which is make a routine before working one of your habits, because that can work. And I know that, when something doesn't work, when you try something, you try a tip and then it doesn't work, it's very tempting to be really hard on yourself and say, well, heck, another day went by, that didn't work. I tried. And it's very frustrating, but you can't get into that trap. That's a trap. You really just have to be objective and detached as possible about your own ability to be productive. This is something I learned soon after beginning this freelancing journey, and I'm glad it didn't take too long. But if you attach your emotions to your work, it becomes suddenly a lot more difficult to get that work done. Now, when the work is done, it might feel great, but in the meantime, by connecting your emotions to your output and creating that dependency, it's actually like shooting yourself in the foot, because that pressure in itself is a distraction. So I'd really recommend being very, again, self-awareness. It keeps coming back to that. So
are there any times where you just can't work?
Yeah. And I think that's really something that isn't said enough, but it's really important to acknowledge. We all have days where we're going to feel more motivated than other days. The point is not to create a habit out of having those bad days, mm-hmm. and to create a habit or habits that create more of those good days. Mm-hmm. And that's why, again, it comes back to self-awareness. You have to take a moment when you start and end your day to say, when you start, what is my baseline level of motivation right now? Am I motivated or am I not? That's not a question we always ask ourselves when we sit down to work. And then, is there some distraction affecting my motivation? And then when you're done, what was my motivation? Did that change? And was there a distraction affecting that motivation? And if you ask yourself those questions before and when you end your work, you can really develop that self-awareness and realize, take note, this worked, this didn't. It's a process. And I really think it's important to acknowledge you're going to have good days and bad days, but you have to also take control and take responsibility for creating those good days for yourself.
Mm-hmm. So when you talk, I can gradually feel like these themes and characteristics that good or strong freelancers have, in terms of the motivation, self-discipline, self-awareness, those, reflectiveness and things like that, as well as ambition. Because to be honest, the life of a freelancer isn't that easy. I know a lot of people kind of think, oh yeah, working from home, you just do the same thing. It's fine, really. You just watch Netflix a lot. That's not if you want to earn any money. That's not what you do. You don't have a pension. You don't have a salary that's coming in each month, whether you're ill or not. If you're able to work, nuh-uh. You've got to be earning enough on the good months that, so the bad months don't bother you so much. If you don't have any projects coming in, you don't get paid. There's so much these days a freelancer has to deal with. You're responsible for winning your own business. You're responsible for managing your time. You're responsible for communicating with clients. You're responsible for pitching new businesses and ensuring your pipeline of future work is going to be strong. You've got to, handle the invoices, the accounting, the chasing up, interacting with your clients' team members and all of the pains that those can cause as well. So This isn't easy. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, and it's easy to get overwhelmed. Are there any times that you've kind of found yourself in that position when you're just like, why do I do this?
Absolutely. It's all part of the process of being a freelancer. It's the one thing that unites freelancing and becoming good at it is a process of self-development. And that's why we've been talking about these broad themes like motivation and discipline. So there's definitely been those times where, freelancing, when you are first getting into it, for most freelancers, there's going to be a feast and famine phase until you really get your business to consistent level and you have a pipeline of people. Most freelancers, myself included, when they're in the first phase of their career, there will be times where you have work and there will be times when you don't, or you have work that doesn't pay well enough, but you just feel like you need to do it. And you're like, what's the point? So absolutely, that does happen, but you have to always think of where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, then you're going to feel frustrated and stuck. That's why I found it very helpful to continue building my knowledge in my field. And specifically, what is the track of success in the field? What are the people who are levels above me? What are they doing? Do I want to do that? Number one. And number two, if I do want to do that, what did they do to get there? And then all of a sudden, feeling stuck and like you're not going anywhere can turn into, excitement that there's a path, there's rungs in a ladder, and you're going to have to climb them. But that is a lot more exciting than feeling like you are earning, whatever you're earning, but you don't know what comes next or what to do to get better, improve your station.
So not focusing on the financial aspect so much, providing that you're making enough to get by, but understanding that as you improve your skills, as you kind of level up, you get more confidence, you gain more experience, you are going to be able to charge more, but that's not necessarily the end goal. It's kind of pursuit of perfecting your craft and I guess constructing the life that you envision for yourself, the life that you have in mind. So I think that's really key, like the self-directed learning, almost improving and beating on your craft can be the goal. It doesn't have to be for everyone. There are lots of people that just do things like copywriting because it is lucrative once you're established, once you kind of find your path. And this is why I love to interview people at every different stage. I feel like there's a ton of different podcasts that only have people that are incredibly successful, and air quotes there in the Austin Powers air quote fashion, Dr. Evil. So it's really useful to hear from people like yourself and like me that, are quite open about the fact that we're just figuring stuff out. We do a lot of things that just don't work. I think a lot of people try and brush them under the carpet, and you get into this insane situation where newbie freelancers or people that are kind of eyeing up a role, they perhaps work in-house at the moment and are looking for some more freedom, flexibility, higher earnings and that sort of thing. They kind of just compare their start to somebody else's end or middle, right? They look at somebody who's putting out these blog posts about how they're doing 10, 15, 20K a month. And they don't understand that it's taken that person, if they are telling the truth, firstly, it's taken that person many years and a lot of things that didn't work to get there.
I couldn't agree more, Nelson. That's exactly it. And I think it's really, everybody loves a success story and our attention goes there. But, like you said, a lot of those big success stories, you don't know what happened along the way, what challenges had to be overcome. Mm-hmm. And for most people, there is going to be a learning curve, especially with something like freelancing where there's a variety of paths, there's a variety of industries.
There's just so many tasks within freelancing as well. So like you can be really, really good at the work. But if you you're not good at the other things, you're actually going to really struggle, which sounds bizarre. Like, how can you be good at your job? So, really, really good at writing sales pages or emails or something like that, or blog content, whatever that happens to be. You can be really, really good at that stuff and still not make a great living, because so much of freelancing is about everything surrounding the work. It's about pitching. It's about research. It's about time management. It's about discipline. It's about chasing up invoices and client management and stuff like that. I mean, it's really quite tricky, and you'll find successful people that don't have all of those completely nailed down, but they do a good enough job at each of those bits. Again, we go back to self-awareness. They're aware enough that they suck at certain bits of that. Like, I'll hold my hands up here and say I'm not the most organized person in the world. I mean, I'm enough to get by. I'm enough to manage my clients. I'm enough to manage the podcast and things, but I have to make an actual concerted effort to do it. It's not something that comes naturally to me. And so we've all got those weak spots. There's nobody that's 10 out of 10 on all of them. You just have to think what's important and then try and set up processes to counter your weaknesses, I think.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think that, this is what advancement really comes down to. It's optimizing yourself and putting yourself in a position to leverage the work you want to be doing as best you can.
So when you were first starting out, and actually in the years in between that as well, what sort of resources did you turn to improve in all of those aspects?
Yeah, so when I first got started, the resources that I needed were the resources that I needed to complete the work. So when I was first writing content online and developing that skill, suddenly I had to learn about SEO. And I had to learn how to write my content and put it online in a way that search engines could be able to discover it. And that uncovered more things that I didn't know. But it also uncovered a new skill, search engine optimization. And soon I began a path toward learning more about this and seeing that it itself was another skill and another track, another thing I could add in my career. So the resources you find will vary, but the bottom line here is what skills and knowledge are you lacking for where you want to be, for the jobs or for the companies that you want to be working for? What are the skills and knowledge that they require from you? And you can find that really easily simply by going on LinkedIn or a company website and looking at job posting. They list exactly the skills they're looking for right there. And you can look at that list and that job. Number one, are you interested? Number two, what skills do you have? And number three, what skills would you be excited to improve? And that's a process of discovery that might lead to you thinking about jobs that you never even considered before. So really, what resources, what specific resources, like it's not the best answer, but it depends. The answer is the resource that you need to do what you want to do is out there. There's more knowledge and lessons on the internet than any of us know what to do with. And the actual thing you have to do is not become addicted to learning. It's to find the one thing that you need to learn and then act on it. And that's definitely been something that has been a double-edged sword for me, where I've had periods where I discovered that there's a group of skills that I really want to improve, and I'll work on improving those skills. But I'm not, that self-directed learning process wasn't then paired with acting to find opportunities to take advantage of those skills. But eventually it got to a point where I realized, okay, you have to stop learning. You need to put this into practice. And those were the moments of career growth. Those were the moments where I realized, oh, I did this action called learning to increase my value. Now I can put it into practice and create proof that that is what increases your value as a worker, whether you're a freelancer or at a company. Mm-hmm. So really, really, really never stop learning. The more skilled and knowledgeable you are in your field, the more leverage you have to advance. Whatever skill you need to learn, make sure you find a credible source that's recommended by your peers. So for me, with marketing, in the marketing industry, there are a group of, there's a set top tier of marketing brands and companies that have very highly regarded lessons for specific skill sets within the marketing industry. And that's always where I've done a lot. I also think that finding opportunities for growth. When I worked at the agencies that I worked at, I learned new skills that I'm using today. So the resources that you find, you have to start with, what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? And what resource is going to fill that gap for you, whether it's an online course or whether it's an actual position that's going to train you in something. You need to figure that out. And if you're not a knowledge worker, you and I are talking in the context of creatives as knowledge workers. There may be some more specific tracks you'll take that are different. But I think in general, arming yourself with the knowledge of what will get you to that next level in your career and putting your intention and actions behind what you know is a bit like creating the wind that you need in your sails. To extend the metaphor, if your career is a boat, your knowledge of the track your career needs to take, including the accomplishments, skills, and people you need to connect with to get to that next level, are the wind in the sails of your career boat. So
very well put. One thing I would like to say is that because you raised it, and I thought, that's a great point, is when you think about freelancing, you've got the skills that you learn to do your job, as in the actual work. So if you're a copywriter, how do I create good copy for whatever that might be? Because obviously you have different styles for landing pages. You've got brand copy, direct response, everything that goes along with that. But then you've got everything that goes around with being a freelancer. So it's like, how do I do that well? How do I produce a good output for my client? But how do I become a good freelancer is almost a different question unto itself. So it's important to kind of recognize that. The other thing that I really, really liked that you mentioned was, do I want to learn these skills? Are they something that I'm passionate about or that I would like to use in the future? Because I've had people say to me, "Oh, Nelson, there's a great opportunity here. You just need to pick up this skill set and you'll be in." And I've kind of looked at it and I've gone, yeah, no, thanks. I'm sure I could learn it. It just doesn't sound like something I want to learn. And there's so much that we could learn. It's important to be quite discerning and not be afraid to say, no to opportunities. I'm not saying that you need to stay in one track and that's the way to success, because I am the complete opposite of that. I started off in social media, first organic, and then everything had to go paid basically as the algorithms changed. Then I moved into PPC because the woman that handled PPC at our agency was leaving, and I thought, I'll give that a try. And then the woman who was leading our SEO efforts left, and I was doing PPC, part of the search engine marketing. It was completely different, but there you go. And I thought, I'll learn SEO and I'll incorporate that. And then I did the same with conversion rate optimization. Now I'm a copywriter, but I kind of model myself on a digital marketer in general, and copy is the tool that I use a lot of the time to grow people's businesses. But if you ask me what I do, I grow people's businesses. I happen to do that through marketing strategy and copywriting. Now, there are people that, because I'm relatively new to copywriting in comparison to the amount of time, the decade that I've spent in digital marketing, but I am making much quicker gains than a lot of people that have just started with the copywriting, because I'm able to leverage those skills. So a lot of the times you'll learn something and you like, well, I'm not totally sure that I'm going to use it now, but I'm passionate about it. I find it interesting. For me, that's a good enough reason to dig in, providing you've got the time and the resources to be able to do so then. Also, there's so much, as you said, online. I'd like to mention the resources that I've used in the past. The two best resources I found for courses, and I'm talking about like multiple areas here, digitalmarketer.com and conversionxl.com. It's called cxl.com now. They have probably between the two had the biggest impact on my career to date in terms of digital marketing, and then Copy Hackers as well. Kind of goes without saying in the copy community. Anybody that's been involved for any period of time kind of knows the resources that they put out. Have you got any to add to that?
Oh, yeah. Well, those top tier sort of things I mentioned. So there's a lot. I think it depends on the skill. Like for SEO, there's some great SEO blogs, like Ahrefs, the SEO tool, Conversion XL. I mean, where else do you want to go to learn conversion rate optimization? I think that if you want to learn about e-commerce, you can learn that. Just go on Shopify. You can learn all the basics you ever need to know on their blog. So again, what is that skill you want to learn? Find the top tier resource. Because like you, Nelson, I've learned an incredible amount of knowledge that's made a direct impact in my career, just as you have, by reading those. These are companies that actually perform these services, but they're giving their knowledge away because it builds their business. And we as freelancers are able to take advantage and incorporate that into our businesses. It's an incredible opportunity. And again, like you can find the equivalent resource toward what Conversion XL is to conversion rate optimization, and so on, or digital marketer toward all around all those digital marketing skills, including PPC. You can find that for whatever your industry is. I would say, ask me the skill and I'll look up the resource I think is best. And if you can do that, if I can do that, you can do that. And that's what you should do to find the resource you need. I really encourage people to find things that work for them. We all learn in a different way, but find an authoritative resource, someone who's doing the work. So, with marketing, it's easy to point to these sites, but with other industries, I don't have as many resources on the top of my mind to list.
Cool. Well, I think that is a fantastic place to leave it. Just to recap, we've had Ziev Beresh on today, talk about kind of all things habit, discipline, motivation, how to be kind of a self-directed, self-aware learner and how that would benefit you, and some of the tips that you can implement. Ziev, where can people find you?
You can find me on my website, and my name is a little bit difficult to spell. Mm-hmm. So my name is Ziev Beresh, and you can see it in the show, I'm sure, but it's ZIEVBERESH.com, and that will give you the information about my professional copywriting services. If you'd like to connect with me, please send a message on LinkedIn. It's the same thing, LinkedIn, /Ziev Beresh, and same thing on Twitter. So please feel free to reach out. I'm always looking to connect with other people who are on this work from home journey. And Nelson, again, I can't commend you enough for starting a podcast on this topic, because I really don't think you could have picked a more important topic for what today's professionals are all universally going through. So good on you.
Thank you very much. It was quite by accident. It's just something that was milling around in my head, and it seemed like a good time to finally stop talking about it and just do it. But thanks again, Ziev, and I hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Working From Home. Thanks and goodbye.
Great. Bye, Nelson.
And that's it for today. You've been listening to the Working From Home podcast with me, Nelson Jordan. We've been talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly side of remote work. Thanks so much for listening, and I really hope you've enjoyed the time you've spent with us today. If you'd like to discuss the podcast, you want to make a new friend, or you're interested in working with me on a copywriting or digital marketing project, then visit nelson-jordan.com. That's nelson-jordan.com. where you can also sign up to my newsletter to hear about this podcast and other exciting projects. Until next week, goodbye.